We open our Davos programming with Azim Premji, the chairman of WIPRO. Mr. Premji, thank you very much for joining us. I have a series of different issues I want to talk to you about. Your view on the global economy, your view on India right now, on the IT business both in India and across the world, and then a little bit about the internal restructuring that you've done. Let me start with a global view. You've come last year when we were talking in Davos, you mentioned that there were all the signs of a recovery. We've been through 12 months of extreme fragility in Europe, a little bit of a recovery, or signs of those in the US. How do you qualify where we are in the world right now?
On a world basis?
Yes.
I think there's more confidence today from people I've been meeting, customers I've been meeting, than there was at this time last year, because the fragility of the world is less, I think, short of the fragility of Greece, Portugal, Spain and Italy. I think there's no other country in any serious crisis. I think the majority of global companies have really used the 2 years of the downsizing and the reset to really get the house in order, to drive productivity, to drive efficiency, to drive more focus, to drive more cash flows and to drive more profitability. So they're sitting on a pile of cash now. And I think the situation has come where they would be back to spending that cash both in RevEx as well as in CAPEX, in capital assets. So I feel good going forward.
Have you identified what could be the 2 or 3 potential events that could in fact reverse this situation of confidence that you're talking about? For instance, if we do see a major collapse in the Eurozone economy, or if the signs of a recovery in the US don't in fact come through, do you believe that business will be impacted severely and the sense of confidence will disappear?
You know, from people I talk to who are in the know of the Eurozone, a crisis may be expected, but a collapse is not expected.
Okay.
I think they've seen through 2 major crises and done it reasonably well. So far as the US is concerned, I think the market has taken into consideration that unemployment rates will continue at 9%, probably through the full of calendar 2011. And that's about the worst catharsis that the US is facing, is very high unemployment rates and all kinds of policies being built around that. And that has been already discounted in the market. So I don't think there's any major event that can happen in the US which can seriously affect sentiment going forward.
So what would you list as the top 2 or 3 concerns, globally speaking, for WIPRO as we go through the next 12 months?
I think one important concern is, and I hope the US will be rational on this, is unreasonable restrictions on flow of talent. You know, there are various overtures they have done vis-a-vis increasing visa fees, making visas more difficult, classification. In terms of protectionism, that should not get much beyond what it is today, otherwise it can hamper trade. And the second thing is a growing concern on unemployment in the US. It's a big political issue. I think the President has done the right thing by appointing Jeff Immelt as head of the Competitive Council. He's a wise man. He has a lot of experience in this. He has a lot of global experience. And he will suggest recommendations which I assume the President will take seriously going forward.
So those are 2 concerns out of 3, or do they combine into one? Because to some degree the high level of unemployment will lead to some degree of protectionism.
So that
will translate into maybe
from an India point of view. But I think it's leading to a lot of disappointment in the performance of the presidency of the economy.
That's right.
Which is not the best thing vis-a-vis going forward. It is because it weakens his hands to make certain decisions which need to be made.
Fair enough.
Because he's keeping on looking at the polls all the time.
Yeah, his ratings have strengthened though recently, I think, after he did the tax moves. But does this sum up your global concerns to some degree?
Yes.
Broadly, yes. Okay, let me come to India. And this is something that I wanted to gauge with every business leader I spoke to in Davos. How difficult do you think the situation in the last 6-8 months has been with regards to the governance deficit? I'm going to trace this back to what I thought was the single most brave corporate India gesture when you wrote that Times of India front page editorial with regards to the Commonwealth Games. But that's been the only voice that we've heard. Thereafter business has been incredibly quiet about the goings on of the last 6-8 months.
But you saw the letter from some of the business and social leaders which came out and was released to the press recently. That's part of a first step. I don't think it's ending with that. We had discussed this with the government. We think it is important that we focus attention on the complete breakdown in public governance across the board, whether it be government, whether it be businessmen, whether it be traders, etc. And we are going to follow it up with fairly concrete action recommendations as to what can lift the level of governance and make it more focused. So far as articles are concerned, I wish more people would write more articles. If I can think of a good one, I would write a good one.
No, I don't mean just action in terms of writing articles. You were one of those 15 signatories to the letter that was released 5 days ago. You mentioned that, you had discussed this with government, not you, but the group of 15. Did you all have conversations with government before you wrote that letter?
No, we gave them a heads up that this is coming.
And why did you feel the need to do that?
As politeness.
Okay, when you say action plan or action points, what are you hoping to be able to do?
Governance of Lok Satya. What does that mean to translate it into actual action? If you say that there has to be a regulatory body for sustainability outside the purview of any ministry, because the problem with it being in a ministry is different ministries pull in different directions, and it depends on the leadership of the ministry. Whereas these are long-term national issues. They cannot be, like SEBI is not at the pleasure of a government department. It's an independent body. Reserve Bank of India is an independent body. I think bodies which are of an overseer nature on governance must be independent of the political process.
But Mr. Premji, almost everybody knows what it takes to fix some of the problems that we have. Several of these things have been discussed for the past several years, whether it's the Lok Ayukt bill or it's strengthening our regulators, giving them independence. Unfortunately, nothing has gotten done in the last 5-7 years, and I mentioned that period because it was the period of highest hope from Dr. Singh's government. So how disappointed are you that this government has been unable to deliver?
Extremely disappointed. I think it's a national calamity. And it's personally very devastating because one had so much confidence in the government when they came in. But I think it's reached a point of catharsis. And when something reaches a point of catharsis, there seems to be no alternative but to change. I am an optimist. I believe we are coming to a situation where it has to come to a head. And that situation has come.
What's going to drive that change?
I think the people. I think politics. I think votes of the people.
What gives you this sense of optimism? Because clearly nothing is... We just went through an ineffective cabinet reshuffle.
Why are you putting so much attention on cabinet reshuffle?
Because unfortunately the biggest deficit right now is in governance, and the government that we had the most expectations of has just not delivered. And I mean, that's your view, that's the view of the Aam Janta. It just hasn't delivered.
Precisely, if it is the view of the Aam Janta, the government is vulnerable in the next elections. They are fortunate in having a non-well-coordinated opposition. Regional parties are coming up. Different leaders will come up. I think there is a high degree of public accountability in our voting. You saw the results in Bihar. The person delivered. And he got voted in an extremely difficult state. So let's see, it's come to a state of catharsis where there has to be action.
You called it a national calamity. Do you see any signs of change maybe this year?
I can't guess. I'm hopeful. We've still got 11 months to go. We've got 11 months to go of the financial year, more than 11 months to go of the financial year.
What does this mean for business confidence in the country?
I think business confidence chugs along. I think fortunately for industry and business, I think it's going to grow irrespective of the government. The government is not becoming very consequential or very influencing so far as business is concerned. I think the fundamentals of the policy are sound. I don't think those policy initiatives of liberalization are going to change irrespective of the government, because the voters are deemed from it in terms of better goods, lower prices, higher quality, more distribution. In this atmosphere of decent liberalization, I think the growth of the industry is determined by exports and domestic demand. And both are strong. Both are very strong.
Okay, let me add to this.
The confidence is a function of that. Are you running a successful business? I don't think people are afraid that the government will collapse. I think majority of sensitive people are sad that this is what we have come to. And I can only use the word sad.
Okay, maybe the governance deficit doesn't have a very big impact on business confidence at least, but let me talk about some of the macroeconomic factors playing out in India right now.
I don't think it's just a question of government deficits, it's also a question of industry leadership deficit. When you've got to clap with two hands, people don't receive unless people give. Let's be very fair about that.
I'm glad you're being so
said
candid,
both- I
because
said
again,
both sides
nobody
of
in
the
business has said anything about, what I keep referring to as the Neera Radia tapes controversy. Not one person has stood up and said, this shows us in poor light as well.
So, I think we have to search our conscience.
Do you believe that the confidence in big business has also decreased? The level of suspicion with regards to big business within, the stakeholder community has also increased because of all the events of the last... the level of confidence has
I
decreased.
don't think so. I think generally both sides are suspect.
So business is unscathed from the events of the last few months, because, let's not forget, when we talk about the 2G scam,
I think the
business was
media
involved.
was focusing on the government. Maybe you also start focusing on business. Pick up scandals and go cradle to grave on them.
Okay.
Like I hope you will go cradle to grave on the government scandals. And when it loses its newsworthiness, don't drift away to something else which is more
When one
newsworthy.
scandal gets replaced by another is what you mean, is it?
Or newsworthy event like you have come to today.
Aditya Birla Group presents CNBC TV 18 CNBC Awaaz Budget 2011. Will it make the impact India needs?
Presented by Aditya Birla Group, taking